This is the story of Gregory Green. Good evening and welcome to my channel. Gregory was a child when he attended church with his mother. In his 20s, he dated Latoya, a single mother of 2 kids. He showed her love and affection, and before long, they were married and they all lived together. She became pregnant for his first child, which is her third, but that was the beginning of a terrible ending. Gregory changed completely. He was aggressive. He was very violent whenever he got angry. So, on the 14th of July 1991, after returning from church that day, Latoya packed her stuff and decided to leave her marriage with her kids for good. She was tired and exhausted. She was just tired and she couldn't continue with the relationship anymore. Greg behaved differently in a strange way that day and she wasn't sure if he was on drugs. But before she could live safely with her kids, he caught her. He was so enraged she was leaving that he stabbed her multiple times and punctured her lungs in the process. She didn't survive the gruesome attack. Her kids were terrified and one even hid in the closet. After he took her out, he dialed 911 and reported himself. Then he waited for the police at his doorway, and when they arrived, he told them her bruised and battered lifeless body was on the kitchen floor. In 1992, Gregory pleaded no contest to the second-degree murder and was sentenced to a 15 to 25 years imprisonment. This is where the story took a different turn. Pastor Harris did something he would regret for the rest of his life. After serving just 12 years in prison, Gregory filed for parole from jail, but he was denied 4 times. 2 years later, on the premise of good behavior, the community wrote letters again and pleaded on his behalf. Pastor Harris wrote 2 letters in Gregory's 13th and 14th year in prison, pleading for his parole. Letters that destroyed the peace and calmness of his home and sealed his daughter's fate. This is what he would never ever forget in his life, that he got involved in the life of a murderer. Had he known, he would never have written those letters. In his letter, he said Gregory was a member of his church and felt he had paid for his lack of self-control and the damage he caused. He said he noticed a great deal of maturity and understanding in him. So if he was to be released, he would be welcome as part of their community, and whatever they could do to help him adjust, they would. So finally, he was released after serving 16 years in jail, and everybody was happy. Gregory and Faith met once at the church before he went to jail, and they met at the church again after his release. Faith is Pastor Harris's daughter. She was a single mother of 2 from a previous relationship. Gregory and Faith started dating and got married in 2010, just 2 years after he got out of prison, and she moved in with her 2 kids. She knew he had been incarcerated, and when she asked him about it, he said he took out his pregnant wife in self-defense. That explanation seemed alright to Faith, so they continued to live as husband and wife. They had 2 daughters together and life couldn't be more beautiful, or so people thought. Both of them had good jobs and Gregory worked really hard. I don't know what Gregory told his parents-in-law to make them give their daughter to him and give them their blessings, but they accepted him. After all, her father was an advocate for his early parole. Somehow, the beast in him reared its ugly head once again. This time it was fierce and brutal. He became angry and irritable, violent and aggressive. He was controlling and he was envious. He thought she had been cheating on him. The red flags were there. Faith saw everything because he began to argue for no reason at all. He had mood swings and the communication was bad. He paid the bills quite alright, but it was more like being married but wanting to stay single. He got to the point he didn't want to have anything to do with our 2 older children. So back in 2013, Faith had filed for divorce for the first time and made her first attempt at obtaining an order of protection against her husband. Faith stated in her request that he was trying to make her leave their home. He was abusive, he was very hostile and aggressive to her. He kicked the couch while the baby slept in it, and he did other terrible things. He also threatened that if she didn't leave their home, things would get uglier. He went on and on for hours that day. But in her divorce file, she never mentioned he had previous criminal history in the request. The judge overlooked the order protection request because she said there was insufficient evidence to support Faith's claims against Gregory, so she was denied by the judge. The third one she filed was a month before something really terrible and horrible happened. Faith said she had to stay that long in the house to save money, to get her own apartment, and then live with her kids, but that was not to be. That spirit that possessed Gregory on the 14th of July 1991, the day he took out Latoya, his first wife, got full control of him again. Gregory planned the attack to deal with Faith carefully in advance. He bought zip ties, he bought duct tape, a box cutter, and a gun. He got enraged and furious, and there was no holding back that time. So, a week later, on the 21st of September 2016, in the middle of the night while all were asleep, he took Faith, his wife, down to the basement of their home. He bound her to a chair with zip ties and duct tape. Then, he began his torturous tirade. He slashed her in the face with a box cutter from ear to chin and shot her in the foot while she was tied down, defenseless. But it didn't stop there. You see, Greg wasn't interested in taking out his wife. All he wanted to do was cause her a deep level of pain that no sane person could imagine. He wanted her to live with it for the rest of her life. Not done with her yet. He went upstairs, grabbed his two biological daughters while they were asleep. They were just 5 and 4 years old. He put them in the family car. He did something to that motor vehicle so that the exhaust from it, rather than pumping air outside, it pumped it into the interior of the car where his daughters were. He placed his daughters in that car that had been modified to put the exhaust into the passenger's compartment of the vehicle. That act has the natural tendency to cause a life to be lost or great bodily harm. The carbon monoxide that should be expelled from the car filled the vehicle and poisoned them till they lost their lives. After that, he removed them from the car and placed them back in their bed. Then he gathered the two older children, 19 and 17 years old, took them down into the basement, stood them in front of their mother, and made her watch as he shot them execution style multiple times. Afterwards, Gregory called the police on himself. He stood in the doorway on the porch and waited for officers to arrive. When police arrived, just like they did when he dealt with Latoya, officers found the 4 children lifeless and they found his wife injured, but she survived the attack. They arrested him without incident. Less than 6 months later, on the 15th of February 2017, Gregory pleaded guilty to a count of torture and assault with intent to do great bodily harm. Gregory was sentenced to a 45 to 100 years in jail with a minimum of at least 47 years served, which will make him 97 years old if he were to be released after the 47 years. This is what Gregory said in court.